Take a deep breath and feel the pain you have carried inside you, not to suffer, but to finally understand it. Today, we look at pain without fear, without resistance, without running away. Here, your pain becomes your teacher. Here, healing begins in silence. There are moments in life when the pain inside you becomes too loud to ignore. You carry it silently for years, pretending to be strong, pretending to be okay, pretending that nothing affects you. But pain is not something you can bury forever. Pain has its own intelligence. It rises when it needs to rise. It speaks when it needs to speak. It knocks on the door of your awareness again and again until you finally stop running and turn toward it. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your unspoken truth. For so long, you tried to escape your hurt. You kept yourself busy. You distracted your mind. You forced yourself to move on. But nothing truly healed because you never allowed yourself to feel. Healing begins the moment you stop fighting your pain and start listening to it. Pain is a teacher disguised as a wound. Every ache inside your chest carries a message. Every heaviness in your heart contains wisdom. Every tear you never allowed yourself to cry holds a truth that wants to be seen. Pain only hurts when you resist it. When you welcome it with awareness, the pain begins to change its shape. You begin to see that what hurts is not the pain itself. What hurts is your clinging to the past, your attachment to old expectations, your hope that life should have happened differently than it did. Pain is the gap between life as it is and life as you wished it to be. And when you finally see this, something inside you softens. You stop blaming life. You stop blaming others. You stop blaming yourself. You begin to understand that pain is not here to punish you. Pain is here to awaken you. All suffering comes from unconsciousness. Pain is life's way of shining a light on the unconscious corners of your heart. It shows you where you are still holding on. It shows you where you are still afraid. It shows you where you are still incomplete. Pain is not a mistake. It is a mirror. And when you look into that mirror with honesty, you begin to see the parts of yourself you have ignored for too long. Your unmet needs, your unspoken fears, your forgotten dreams, your suppressed emotions, your hidden wounds. These parts are not broken. They are simply waiting to be embraced. Pain is the voice of your inner child asking, "Will you finally listen to me?" And when you listen, truly listen, without judgment, without resistance, without fear, the pain begins to soften. It loses its sharpness. It loses its heaviness. It loses its power to control you. Pain transforms the moment awareness touches it. You begin to realize that the heart does not break to destroy you. The heart breaks to open you, to expand you, to deepen you, to awaken you. Without pain, you would never know your strength. Without loss, you would never know your depth. Without heartbreak, you would never know the vastness of your own capacity to love. Pain prepares you for the person you are becoming. It pushes you inward, toward silence, toward truth, toward awareness. And in that inner space, you discover something extraordinary. Pain is not the end. Pain is the beginning of understanding, the beginning of growth, the beginning of transformation. Pain breaks the illusion that you are in control. Pain breaks the ego that pretends to be strong. Pain breaks the walls around your heart, not to weaken you, but to free you. Inside the wound, a door opens, a door to a deeper version of yourself. A version that sees clearly, feels deeply, and lives truthfully. You begin to understand that healing is not about forgetting. Healing is about seeing. Healing is about accepting. Healing is about allowing life to reshape you from within. Your suffering is not meaningless. Your journey is not random. Everything you have felt was necessary for your awakening. Life uses pain to show you the places where love needs to enter. Life uses pain to bring you back to yourself. Life uses pain to make you conscious. And now, as you breathe deeply and allow these words into your heart, you begin to feel something shifting inside you. A softness, a warmth, a quiet understanding. This is the beginning of healing. This is the beginning of freedom. This is the beginning of your awakening. As you sit with your pain a little longer, something begins to shift inside you, not instantly, not dramatically, but quietly, like the way dawn begins before the sun even rises. A soft light touches the corners of your being. You begin to feel that the pain you feared for so long is not as monstrous as your mind made it. The moment you stopped running, the moment you allowed yourself to feel, the moment you simply sat with your suffering, something subtle changed. The pain became honest. Pain does not want to destroy you. Pain simply wants to be acknowledged. It wants to be held. It wants to be understood. It is like a child who has been crying for years, and the moment you finally pick it up, the crying begins to soften. The pain inside you has been crying for attention, not for pity. It has been asking for awareness, not avoidance. You begin to see that every wound inside you was created at a moment when you felt helpless, unheard, unseen, unloved. And because you didn't know how to hold yourself then, the pain remained stuck in your chest, waiting for the day you would be strong enough to face it. That day is today. You feel the sadness rising, the fear trembling, the loneliness echoing. And instead of running away, you breathe, you allow, you witness. You finally say to your own heart, I am here. Those 3 words begin the deepest healing possible. Pain does not heal when time passes. Pain heals when presence arrives. And now, your presence is arriving. Your awareness is finally touching those corners of your being that remained hidden for years. As your awareness deepens, something else becomes clear. Suffering did not come from the pain itself, but from your resistance to it. The more you fought it, the bigger it became. The more you avoided it, the louder it screamed. But the moment you turned toward it, the moment you opened your heart to feel it, the pain began to lose its grip. Awareness melts suffering the way sunlight melts ice. You start seeing your pain as an inner signal, a signal that something inside you needs love, a signal that something inside you needs release, a signal that something inside you has been hurting silently. Pain is your soul saying, come back, I need you. And gradually, you begin to come back to your breath, back to your body, back to your truth, back to your heart. You realize that pain is not asking you to be strong. Pain is asking you to be real. Real with yourself. Real with your emotions. Real with your past. Real with your healing. You begin to see that healing is not a straight line. Healing is a spiral. You revisit the same feelings again and again, but each time from a higher level of understanding. Each time a little softer. Each time a little wiser. Each time a little closer to freedom. And as you go deeper, you realize something even more surprising. Pain is not trying to break you. Pain is trying to awaken you. Awaken you to the parts of yourself you forgot. Awaken you to the strength you never knew you had. Awaken you to the truth that you survived everything you thought would destroy you. The wound becomes a doorway. The doorway becomes a passage. The passage becomes a path. And the path leads you back to your own essence. You begin to understand that pain actually shaped you. It made you compassionate. It made you sensitive. It made you aware. It made you deeper. It made you human. Without pain, you would have never learned how to love yourself. Without hurt, you would have never learned how to protect your peace. Without heartbreak, you would have never opened your heart to higher truth. You realize that every tear you cried was watering the roots of your awakening. Every sleepless night was preparing you for clarity. Every broken moment was cleansing your soul. Every disappointment was removing what was not meant for you. Slowly, gently, your pain turns into wisdom. Your wounds turn into awareness. Your struggles turn into strength. And through this transformation, you begin to feel a deep warmth rising in your heart. A warmth that feels like forgiveness. Not forgiveness for others, but forgiveness for yourself. You forgive yourself for not knowing better. You forgive yourself for trusting the wrong people. You forgive yourself for staying where you were hurting. You forgive yourself for carrying pain alone. You forgive yourself for breaking, because breaking was the way opening began. This forgiveness is liberation. This liberation is healing. This healing is awakening. You start touching your own heart with compassion. You start taking your pain gently into your hands. You start holding yourself the way the world couldn't. You start giving yourself the love you never received. You start becoming the shelter you always needed. And in this love, your own love, the pain begins to dissolve. Not suddenly, not instantly, but continuously. Like a river that cleanses everything it touches. This is how healing begins. Not with force, not with denial, not with running, but with awareness, with acceptance, with softness. You begin to feel inside you a quiet whisper. I am healing. I am changing. I am awakening. As you move deeper into your healing, something inside you begins to awaken that you may have forgotten existed, a quiet strength, a strength that does not come from fighting but from understanding. Earlier, you believed strength meant holding everything together. You thought strength meant pretending to be okay even when you were breaking inside. You thought strength meant not crying, not falling, not showing pain. But now you begin to see the truth. Real strength has nothing to do with suppression. Real strength comes from awareness. Awareness is the only strength you need. When you sit with your pain without running, when you face your emotions without fear, when you touch your wounds without judgment, you are already stronger than you ever were. Your true strength is not loud. It does not shout. It does not fight. It simply stands quietly, peacefully, courageously. And as this inner strength grows, you begin to realize that much of your suffering did not come from others, it came from the way you held on to your pain. You replayed memories that were meant to fade. You kept stories alive that were meant to die. You reopened wounds because you believed healing meant going back to what hurt you. But now, with awareness, you begin to understand healing is not about returning to the past. Healing is about returning to yourself. Slowly, you begin to reclaim the parts of you that you abandoned, the part of you that was innocent, the part of you that trusted easily, the part of you that loved deeply, the part of you that believed in life, the part of you that felt freely, the part of you that dreamed openly. Pain did not break you, pain hid you from yourself. Healing is the process of finding yourself again. You begin to see that your pain shaped you in ways nothing else could. It made you wiser. It made you more aware. It made you more compassionate. It made you less judgmental. It made you understand the suffering of others. It made you gentle, and this gentleness is your greatest strength. For the first time, instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" And that shift changes everything. You start seeing meaning in the places where you once saw only wounds. You start seeing growth in the places where you once saw only loss. You start seeing transformation in the places where you once saw only pain. Life does not break you to punish you. Life breaks you to remove what is no longer you. Every heartbreak peeled away a layer of illusion. Every disappointment removed a false expectation. Every betrayal showed you where your trust did not belong. Every loss brought you closer to the truth that your deepest belonging is within. You start realizing that the people who hurt you were carrying their own pain. They acted from their wounds. They spoke from their fears. They behaved from their unconsciousness. And just like you were hurting silently, they were also hurting silently. This understanding brings compassion. Not the compassion that excuses behavior, but the compassion that frees you from hatred. Because hatred binds you, pain binds you, anger binds you, but awareness liberates you. The moment you understand, you begin to let go. Not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. You deserve the weight to leave your chest. You deserve the silence that follows healing. You deserve the peace that comes when the heart stops fighting. You deserve rest after carrying emotional storms for so long. And slowly, healing becomes a release of people, a release of expectations, a release of pressure, a release of identities, a release of pain. Not because you force yourself, but because awareness naturally loosens your grip. You cannot hold on to what awareness has revealed as illusion. Your heart begins to open again, carefully, slowly, respectfully. Not because you seek love from outside, but because you feel love rising from within. Your healing is not about becoming who you used to be. Your healing is about becoming someone you never were. Someone wiser, someone softer, someone who knows themselves deeply. You discover that the pain you experienced has prepared you for a life with sharper clarity. Now you see people clearly. Now you feel energies clearly. Now you understand intentions clearly. Now you recognize truth clearly. Pain sharpened your inner vision. Pain awakened your intuition. Pain expanded your consciousness. Your suffering did not weaken you. it opened you. And in this opening, a new life begins. A life where you no longer carry your past as a burden. A life where you no longer chase approval. A life where you no longer fear endings. A life where you no longer abandon yourself. In this new life, you walk differently. You breathe differently. You choose differently. You love differently. Life itself begins to feel different. Lighter, softer, clearer. And as this transformation deepens, you realize something beautiful. Your pain was never here to break you. Your pain was here to bring you home. And this whisper becomes the truth of your heart. As your healing journey continues, you begin to experience a shift so subtle yet so powerful that it transforms the way you relate to yourself. Earlier, your identity was shaped by your wounds. You saw yourself through the lens of what went wrong, who hurt you, what you lost, and where you failed. Your pain had become your mirror, and for years you looked at your reflection through cracked glass. Now, as awareness expands, that mirror begins to clear. You begin to see yourself not through your wounds, but through your truth. There is a beautiful moment in every awakened soul's journey when they realize, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. This realization enters your heart like a quiet sunrise. Not sudden, not loud, but gentle, inevitable, unstoppable. You start noticing that the stories you carried about your suffering begin to lose their weight. For so long, you believed your pain defined you. You believed your heartbreak meant you were unworthy. You believed your trauma made you broken. You believed your mistakes made you undeserving. But all of these beliefs were woven by the mind, the same mind that was shaped in moments of weakness and fear. Now, with clarity awakening within you, you see the truth. Your pain was an experience, not your identity. The moment you separate who you are from what happened to you, your inner world expands. You feel spacious. You feel lighter. You feel like the sky after a storm, still wet with rain, but open, boundless, full of possibility. You begin to understand that healing was never about fixing yourself. Healing was about remembering yourself. The self you were before pain touched you. The self you were before fear shaped you. The self you were before heartbreak hardened you. And with every breath, you return to that original self, innocent, pure, alive, aware. Your pain, which once felt like a cage, now feels like a teacher. You see how your deepest wounds taught you your deepest lessons. You see how heartbreak expanded your capacity to love. You see how loss taught you the strength of letting go. You see how silence taught you how to hear your own soul. You begin to thank the very storms you once cursed. Not because the pain was good, but because you grew through it. You understand now that emotional pain does not come to punish you. It comes to purify you. Purify your heart. Purify your awareness. Purify your understanding of life. Every tear you shed washed something false away. Every night you cried alone opened a door within you. Every moment you felt broken softened your ego. Every time your heart cracked, more light entered. Pain was not destroying you. Pain was reshaping you. You feel this now in the way you respond to life. You no longer react from wounds. You respond from wisdom, You no longer seek validation from others. You validate yourself. You no longer search for love outside. You feel love rising from within. You no longer fear being alone. You recognize solitude as your sanctuary. This evolution is slow but real. You begin to trust your journey. You begin to trust your timing. You begin to trust your strength. You begin to trust your own heart. The very heart that once felt shattered now begins to feel sacred. You touch your chest and feel not hurt, but healing, not emptiness, but awakening. And as this healing unfolds, you begin to notice something profound. Your inner world is becoming quiet, not silent from suppression, but silent from peace. The thoughts that once attacked you soften. The memories that once haunted you fade. The fears that once ruled you dissolve. A new inner space opens. A space where you can finally breathe freely. This inner quiet becomes your strength. It becomes your guide. It becomes your protector. You realize that life is no longer happening against you. Life is happening for you. Every experience was leading you here, to this clarity, to this peace, to this awakening. You are no longer living from your wounds. You are living from your awareness. No longer reacting from fear. You are responding from consciousness. No longer carrying the past. You are walking into the future with an open heart. And in this openness, life begins to feel new again. Colors feel brighter. Moments feel richer. People feel clearer. Breath feels deeper. Silence feels safe. You begin to realize that healing is not the end of pain. Healing is the beginning of freedom. Freedom from the mind. Freedom from fear. Freedom from attachment. Freedom from old stories. You feel lighter because you are finally letting life flow through you. Not holding it. Not fighting it. Not resisting it. This is the rebirth of your soul. A gentle, quiet, powerful rebirth. You were never broken. You were becoming. As your healing deepens even further, you begin to sense a profound shift in the way you understand your own emotions. Earlier, every emotion felt like a storm. It came with force. It carried chaos, and it left you trembling. You felt invaded by your own feelings, overwhelmed by the tides within. But now, something has changed. You no longer see emotions as enemies. You start seeing them as visitors, guests that come into your inner home with messages, with lessons, with wisdom hidden beneath their intensity. Slowly, you begin to sit with your emotions the way you would sit with a friend who is hurting patiently, gently, without judgment. You realize that anger is not rage. Anger is unexpressed truth. You realize that sadness is not weakness. Sadness is love that has nowhere to go. You realize that fear is not danger. Fear is a child inside you asking for safety. You realize that loneliness is not emptiness. Loneliness is the desire to return to yourself. You realize that heartbreak is not the end. Heartbreak is the beginning of awakening. Every emotion becomes a doorway, and you begin to walk through these doorways one by one, not with fear, not with resistance, but with awareness. Awareness touches every emotion gently. It does not push it away. It does not cling to it. It simply watches, holds, and transforms. You start seeing clearly that nothing inside you is wrong. Not your pain, not your sadness, not your fears, not your desires, not your tears. Everything inside you exists for a reason. Everything inside you has a purpose. Everything inside you is part of your growth. Your healing becomes deeper when you stop dividing your emotions into good and bad. There is no good or bad within the heart. There is only truths. And the more truth you allow yourself to feel, the lighter you become. You begin allowing emotions to rise and fall naturally. You allow yourself to cry without shame. You allow yourself to feel without guilt. You allow your wounds to speak without suppressing them. And slowly, the wounds that once felt like poison become sources of wisdom. Your tears that once felt heavy begin to wash your being clean. Your sadness that once felt dark begins to connect you to your deepest truth. Your pain that once made you collapse begins to give you strength. Pain does not shape you by breaking you. Pain shapes you by waking you. And as you wake up, you begin to see that healing is not something you achieve. Healing is something you allow. Healing is something you surrender to. Healing is something that happens when you stop forcing yourself to be strong. Now, you begin to understand that healing is not about erasing the past. Healing is about releasing the grip the past had on you. The memories lose their sting. The images lose their sharpness. The emotional charge dissolves. You can remember without suffering. You can reflect without breaking. You can look back without losing your present. This is the sign that healing is happening. Your inner world becomes clearer. Your breath becomes softer. Your reactions become calmer. Your decisions become wiser. Awareness has begun to take your pain into its arms. And the moment awareness holds your pain, pain cannot survive in its old form. You feel a new spaciousness inside, a space where old hurt does not dominate, a space where past fears do not scream, a space where your heart is not constantly defending itself. In this spaciousness, you rediscover something precious, your innocence. The innocence that pain couldn't destroy, the innocence that life could not take, the innocence that remained hidden beneath all your wounds. You begin to see yourself with kinder eyes. You begin to treat yourself with more softness. You begin to forgive yourself more easily. You begin to speak to yourself the way you always needed someone to speak to you. This self-kindness is the deepest medicine. You start realizing that no external love can heal you if you do not learn to love yourself. And no external validation can fill you if you do not learn to trust yourself. And no external presence can give you peace if you do not become present with yourself. This is why pain came into your life. Not to punish you, not to break you, but to bring you inward, to bring you home. You now begin to feel an inner stability rising, a stillness that does not depend on circumstances, a peace that does not depend on people, a clarity that does not depend on the world. The stillness becomes your anchor. It keeps you centered even when emotions move. It keeps you grounded even when life changes. It keeps you awake even when old patterns try to return. And from this stillness, something extraordinary begins to bloom. A new relationship with yourself. A relationship built on respect. A relationship built on honesty. A relationship built on presence. A relationship built on love. For the first time in years, maybe even in your whole life, you begin to feel safe inside your own heart. Safe to feel. safe to be, safe to grow, safe to heal, safe to transform. You understand now that healing is not a destination. Healing is a rebirth, a continuous unfolding of your true self. And the one who emerges from healing is not the old you repaired, but the new you awakened. As you continue moving inward, there comes a moment when you begin to see that healing is not only about releasing pain, healing is also about reclaiming your power. For years, your power was scattered across people, memories, heartbreaks, expectations, and attachments. You gave pieces of yourself to places where they were not valued. You let others decide how you should feel, how you should live, how you should love. You shaped your life around fears, around wounds, around the opinions of those who never understood your soul. Now, as your awareness grows, you begin to gather your power back, not violently, not angrily, but quietly, gracefully, peacefully. You begin to say, "This is my heart, this is my mind, this is my energy, this is my path," and something inside you shifts. The weight you carried begins to lighten. The dependency you felt on others begins to dissolve. The need for approval begins to fade. You start realizing that the person you thought you needed was never the source of your strength. The situation you thought you couldn't live without was never the source of your peace. The memories you clung to were never your identity. The wounds you carried were never your truth. Your power was always within you, sleeping, waiting, whispering. Now you begin to hear that whisper. It says, "You are not fragile. You are not broken. You are awakening." This awakening begins quietly. You notice it in the way you breathe deeper, slower, calmer. You notice it in the way you speak with clarity instead of fear. You notice it in the way you choose with wisdom instead of desperation. You notice it in the way you love with presence instead of attachment. You no longer chase anyone's attention. You no longer beg for love. You no longer plead for understanding. You no longer shrink yourself to fit into small spaces. Your energy no longer leaks. Your boundaries no longer shake. Your heart no longer bends under pressure. This strength is not loud. It does not shout. It does not fight. It simply stands grounded, conscious, awake. This is the strength that comes from healing. Not the strength of ego, but the strength of understanding. You start seeing clearly that you survived everything you thought would destroy you. You carried storms inside your chest and still walked forward. You faced nights when sleep refused to come. You cried silently so no one could hear. You broke but still rose. You lost but still moved. You fell but still continued. And now, finally, you begin to acknowledge your own courage. You begin to breathe with pride, not arrogance, but gratitude. Gratitude for your own resilience. Gratitude for your own heart. Gratitude for the journey that shaped you. You realize that while pain touched you, it could not erase you. While life challenged you, it could not defeat you. While the world misunderstood you, it could not limit you. Your soul remained intact, stronger, clearer, deeper. As you reclaim your power, you also begin to reclaim your voice. A voice that was silenced by fear. A voice that was softened by trauma. A voice that was buried under guilt, a voice that was ignored by the world. Now that voice rises, calm, steady, truthful. You start speaking your truth without shaking. You start saying no without guilt. You start saying yes without fear. You start choosing yourself without apology. This self-choice becomes a turning point. For the first time, you stop abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. For the first time, you stop betraying your own heart for temporary acceptance. For the first time, you stop ignoring your own needs to meet someone else's expectations. You realize that every time you chose yourself, your healing deepened. Every time you honored your feelings, your wounds softened. Every time you listened to your intuition, your clarity sharpened. You learned to trust yourself again, something you lost long ago in the noise of the world. Now that trust becomes your foundation. You trust your emotions because they speak truth. You trust your intuition because it sees what the mind cannot. You trust your journey because it unfolds with purpose. You trust your timing because it is guided by something greater than logic. You begin to live with a quiet confidence, not the confidence that demands to be seen, but the confidence that needs no witness. This inner confidence is the fruit of all the pain you transformed. This softness is the reward of all the storms you survived. This clarity is the result of all the darkness you walked through. You realize that nothing in your past was wasted. Every experience carved wisdom into your soul. Every heartbreak opened a deeper layer of your being. Every loss created space for something more true. Every disappointment pushed you inward, where your real treasure was hidden. Now, as your awareness blooms fully, you understand you were never broken. You were only becoming. If the stalk touched your pain gently, let the healing continue inside you. Do not fight your past. Do not rush your heart. Awareness transforms everything. Return to yourself whenever you feel lost. You are healing and you are awakening.